Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's staff meeting on the programming of the new unit of work, Ecosystems at Risk. Planned for Term 1, this unit spans over 8 weeks. All right. As you are aware, we are situated in a private school in North Sydney area. We do have a high ICC index, therefore allowing us access to further opportunities. I have also secured allocations in the HISI budget to allow for geography camp at the end of the unit. Our geography class consists of 18 students distributed amongst two classes and with two teachers. Amongst our two classes, we have two students who identify as Indigenous Australian learners and one student who has ADHD. Scaffolding and hands-on activities will be implemented to differentiate for these students. Alright, moving on to the core concepts. For this unit of work, I have decided to focus on the following four concepts that will be embedded throughout the learning sequence. Sustainability, so addressing how practices can maintain, manage, and sustain our ecosystems for the future generations. Interconnections, so understanding the relationships between human impacts, biophysical impacts, and the ecosystem. Environments, so assessing the characteristics of the case study in ecosystems. And lastly, change, so assessing how ecosystems have adapted, evolved, or have been impacted over time. Additional concepts of the course that are specific to this unit are ecosystems and biophysical interactions, which will also be explored. Alright, moving on to the case studies. In this unit, we will look at two case studies, the Great Barrier Reef and the Daintree Rainforest. These two locations are prime examples of ecosystems at risk in Australia. So looking at the human-induced impacts on the Daintree Rainforest and the Great Barrier Reef will be extremely beneficial to the students to process and communicate course concepts to relative examples. Considering the closeness in the geographical locations of the Great Barrier Reef and the Daintree Rainforest, it allows students to explore both of these ecosystems and conduct fieldwork in the end of the unit camp. Alright, in terms of the teaching, learning, and assessment choices, we have a school focus on inquiry-based learning that will be sustained throughout this unit of work. To uphold the inquiry-based learning approach, classwork will incorporate jigsaw activities, the use of Harvard toolkits such as the See, Think, Wonder activities, and implement direct and guided instructions in our work to solidify students' learning. When talking about the two case study ecosystems, strong connections will be made to Aboriginal landlings involving the 8-way pedagogy. Teacher instructions will be given both verbally and non-verbally to aid the Indigenous learners and students with ADHD. Similarly, hands-on learning such as fieldworks during camp can accommodate for the ADHD learner and Indigenous students, allowing them to focus and engage in course content. Students will also be given an ongoing assessment for learning tasks in week 4, which will build on their students' inquiry skills. Through the inquiry-based learning process, students will be given an inquiry question detailed in the scope and sequence and will be asked to investigate the case study ecosystems and create a portfolio with relevant information about the spatial patterns of the Great Barrier Reef or the Daintree Rainforest, with specific focus on the spatial patterns, biophysical interactions, rate of change, human impacts, and management practices. Students will then use the theory learnt in class and the fieldwork data collected on camp and formulate a report and action plan, which is part 2 of the assessment, the summative portion, to evaluate the method of effectively managing their chosen ecosystems. Okay, so in terms of fieldwork, in this unit of work, I am trying to provide students with the opportunity to conduct fieldwork. Students are allowed to take part in the camp in week 8. In this camp, students are going to explore the Daintree Rainforest and the Great Barrier Reef. Students will observe, measure, collect data from primary sources, and will have the opportunity to conduct field sketches, take photos of different parts of the reef and rainforest, and construct a log of events to showcase their data on the human-induced impacts on the chosen ecosystems. The excursion tour I've selected is conducted from Worldstride, a company that specifically designs excursions for educational purposes. The Cairns Ecosystem Tour explores the rainforest and reef in 4 days, allowing students to take part in activities like Daintree Discovery Centre, the Great Barrier Reef Cruise, a glass bottom boat guided tour, and a turtle rehabilitation guided visit. I will also work with the Worldstride company to ensure activities suit the class's needs and relate to our topic. Okay, moving on to common misconceptions that may be held by students. So, common misconceptions that may be held by students include one, failing to see the importance of concepts in the geography classroom, therefore lowering the quality of work. To ensure students fully engage with the core concepts, they will be explicitly taught and incorporated into the lesson material when required. Two, syllabus dot point of evaluation of traditional and contemporary management strategies is often done poorly. So students often struggle to correctly understand the process involved in evaluating management strategies. Students will be explicitly taught to evaluate management strategies based on a criteria such as the UN Agenda 21, State of Environmental Report, and Sustainable Development Goals. And lastly, another misconception is that it is noted that students underestimate the importance of fieldwork in geography. So, this is something that we're going to try to highlight throughout the camp, showing the importance of practical research. Alright, so as you can see from my scope and sequence, I followed the inquiry-based learning approach to teaching. Each week, students are given an inquiry-based question based on the syllabus dot point and with incorporation of various teaching strategies such as the jigsaw activity and collaborative learning, we will try to get them to answer the questions. This will be done through the assessment for learning task and the action plan summative assessment, which will conceptualize their learning by allowing them to research, discuss, and draw on conclusions on their ecosystems and management. I have planned the learning sequence in a week by week format. The first 3 weeks look at the first syllabus dot point, ecosystems and their management, whilst the following weeks focus on syllabus dot point 2, investigating the two case study ecosystems. In week 4 and 5, students investigate the Daintree rainforest, while in weeks 6 and 7, they explore the Great Barrier Reef. Finally, ending the unit off with the camp and a summative assessment in week 8, which is the action plan. Alright, so that is the program that I've created for ecosystems at risk. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll love to get some feedback.